Happy St. Patrick's Day from all of us on Nace Radio Online. Wishing you a pot of gold and all the joy your heart can hold.
You're listening to Nace Radio Online. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and what a day it is today. And I'm very lucky to have somebody in studio today. We have Patrick Hyland, and Patrick is a tenor and he's here to share a bit of music with us and a bit of history. Welcome, Patrick.
It's great to be here, Deborah.
Absolutely brilliant to be here. Now, Patrick, for people that don't know you, and I would say a lot of people do know you, but for the ones that don't know you and are tuned in today for our St. Patrick's Day special, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Easttown, near Punchestown. I'm a classical trained tenor, singer, opera singer. I've been doing that for a good few years now. I studied in the Royal Irish Academy of Music. Wow. And I've worked with Wexford Opera, all the opera companies in Ireland, Northern Ireland, and in Glyndebourne, and I've travelled a good bit around Europe and in the States. So,
Patrick, can I ask you a question though? When did you get into, classical music, opera, and like when did this feed your soul? At what age?
Well, I think one of my earliest memories of music is listening to a Saw Doctor cassette when I was about 5 or 6. Okay. And music had always been in me in kind of in my everyday life. I'd always be humming and things like that. Yeah. My grandmother was the organist in the local church, and I would have sung a lot with her. But then I didn't really, in secondary school, I wasn't really that musically inclined.
You were growing up, you were having a laugh.
I was a young lad, and I kind of was, I appreciated music, but I wasn't really, that wasn't something that I thought I would be doing. Yeah. And it was kind of when I was 19, I was in college, and my granny had died the year before. Oh, no. And I just said I'd get some singing lessons just to do some music, and it all kind of started from there. The guy I went to thought I had a really good voice, and I was doing history and politics in UCD at the time. Yeah. And he basically sent me on to a friend of a friend, and to a friend of a friend. Yeah. I ended up getting an audition with Ronnie, Veronica Dunn, in the Royal Irish Academy of Music. And Ronnie was on her summer kind of break, and she was just in the academy for the day, and she said, look, I'll take you on for 6 weeks because I'm not teaching during the summer. Yeah. And 10 years later I was still with Ronnie. So that's how it started. I sung Panis Angelicus for her. Oh. And she said, you've a nice voice. She said, I have a bit of room time, I'll take you for 6 weeks. And we did that.
10 years.
10 years, and it was really her that got me into the opera, and gave me opened up a whole world for me, really.
You see, I headhunted Patrick, right? Because he follows us on our Instagram page, and then I saw he was interested in history, so I hunted him down, and I went into his Facebook page, and there was a particular clip you had. You were kind of prepping before a wedding. Oh my word! When his lungs open. Now, and I'm not saying this because you're here beside me, but when his lungs open, it gives you goosebumps. So I'm sure the very first time that you opened up like that, maybe your teachers or your mentors went, wow.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I could sing like that. That was I think that was the Pearlfish, as you might have heard. It took a lot of training for me anyway, especially with the tenor voice. It's a very particular voice, because it's kind of a false voice that's created. I don't want to go too technical, but above the stage, above the cleft. So it's above the, so to go into E, F, G, you kind of have to modify your voice. I'm not getting too technical now. Yeah. But so it's, you do need to train your voice to be able to access that facility and sing those notes in a confident way. Some people can just open their mouth and sing those notes, which is great. But for me anyway, it took a lot of training. So when that first, probably, when maybe I hit a top C, would have been in my scales or something like that. Before I sang it in an aria or in a piece like that. Yeah. When I started with Ronnie, she had me on songs for for nearly 2 years. I'd never touched a classical piece or
just ordinary songs.
Ordinary, The Lark in the Clear Air.
Yeah.
Oh God. All these Irish ballads and things, like, just to get the voice moving. And so I've quite a large repertoire of that kind of music. And then eventually, I remember the first aria she put in front of me, and she said, "I bet you'll never want to sing anything else again." And it had a huge effect on me. And
would you ever sing anything else again?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I sing, but I knew for the next couple of years, it was all arias that I wanted to sing. I mean, it's like, it's like driving a car, and then you're training to drive a Ferrari, and or a Formula One, and then you get into the car, like, you don't really want to go back, when you can do it, So that was kind of that experience. It was great.
The whole thing, though, about it is, when you're on stage and you're in that suit, with your tails, and I just think there's something really classy and beautiful about that, though, isn't there? It's just everyone's dressed up so nice, and the girls are in their ball gowns, and they're just, it's just amazing. Because we were talking about opera before we came on, and you said, let's talk a little bit about opera. Can we? Can we talk about that whole feeling of going there, or if you're performing? It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic art form, and as I said, I wouldn't have really grown up with much opera.
Yeah.
I mean, the only opera I would have known was Luciano Pavarotti singing for the Italia 90, the three tenors. That would have been the only. I think Pavarotti was probably the only opera singer I knew.
Or Freddie Mercury, he done a little opera bit.
With Montserrat Caballé, so that kind of, that would have been my experience of opera. So it is something, I think, that I would have known classical music. We all know classical music. Because we see it. We're so exposed to, I always say to people, like Carmen was on Irish National Opera doing Carmen. There's so many pieces in that that are familiar to our ear because they're in advertisements. They're in a lot of movies as background thing. I was looking at Atonement again there recently, and Kate O Suave Fanciulla from La Boheme is in it.
Huge,
when he's playing it on the 65, the recorder, and so we're exposed to a lot of opera. The form itself, it does take a bit kind of, I remember seeing, God, they're all singing around, and what's that all about, But what happened with me anyway was, I remember when I went to Glyndebourne, I saw a production of Rossini's Cenerentola, which is basically the story of Cinderella.
Oh, wow.
And, this is the story we all grew up with.
Yeah, we all know
And it was just so well done, and the acting in it was just sublime. Like the two sisters, where there was kind of a comic duet between the two sisters and the father, and it all slotted perfectly into the music. And I remember just sitting there being completely, and it kind of clicked with me, because what actually happened, Deborah, is I forgot that there was music.
Wow.
It's like it was so well done. The singing was,
it
was like watching a movie. And it's like if I say to you, did you see a movie the other night? And you were like, oh yeah, did you remember the music in it? You'd be like, I remember there was music in it, but you're taken by the drama.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, perfect opera is kind of when everything is just aligned, the drama, the music, everything is one, and it's a feast for the senses.
Yeah, it's
and you've dancing, you've choreography. It's like all the art forms are kind of brought together with opera. You've singing, you've the orchestra, you've dancers, you've acting, you've obviously all the costume, the stage design, the lighting, everything. And you've these great stories as well that are things. So it's kind of if anything, it can be overwhelming a little bit, when people, but it's something that definitely you get, the more, like a lot of things in life, the more you go to it, the more
you're going to love it.
You're going to love it, And I would tell people, I would definitely, like, if people are going to an opera for the first time, I'd say, get a CD of it, listen to some of the music on it so it's familiar on your ear, and definitely read the story before you go as well. Yeah. Maybe not the end, but definitely read the story so you're kind of familiar with it. But definitely, it needs to be something that's on your ear.
Exactly. And a wonderful, wonderful experience as well. Now, have you been in any operas, or would you hope to go down that road of the bit of acting and the singing? Yeah,
I've done a number of roles in opera with Irish opera, with Northern Ireland opera, with lyric opera. I was in Glyndebourne. I've done some stuff in Switzerland, and I've done a good few roles over my time, and there's still a few more. It's not something that it's you kind of I'm at a stage now where there's a lot more roles opening up to me, because as you get older, your voice settles and it changes. And so it's not like I couldn't do a role when I was 19. And as well, some of the roles you'd be too young to do. But it wouldn't be plausible, a 19-year-old to do a role when the guy's meant to be 35. Like in a film or a movie. But also the voice, the timbre, the colour in the voice needs to match, and the ability as well to sing some of these things with line and stuff needs to comes with age as well.
And do you still train your voice, because there could be somebody listening in here now, and maybe the mother is saying, well, my son's a good singer and I'd like him to go down that road. Like, what do you do with your voice? Do you nurture it? Do you look after it?
Definitely. Like during lockdown now, I think I went for a period, I do light warm up maybe 2-3 times a week, because I knew I wasn't going to be singing. But when I'm coming up to a show, or more importantly, when I'm learning new music, I would be I'd be warming up every day, and be kind of watching. You're watching what you're eating, and the exercises that you're doing.
You're eating.
Like some foods would affect. Like I know I wouldn't like. For me, I'm lucky though. Chocolate I'd avoid before a performance. Cream,
really?
So. I'd have a cup of tea rather than a cappuccino. But I'll be honest, Deborah, I'm not like I drink a lot of water, but I'm lucky in that my voice. I know some people have to be very
careful,
very very careful, and they really can't sing. But touch wood, but obviously you mind yourself coming up performance, and
lemon and honey and all
lemon
that.
And honey and rest is important, and speaking, you wouldn't want to be shouting at a match or anything the day before.
Come on, Ireland.
Exactly. I do have to or
don't go to the rugby before a performance.
Don't go to rugby or watch Cheltenham the week before a performance.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can I ask, who is Patrick though, rather than this tenor? Who is Patrick? Who are you? What else do you do? We want to know about you as well.
Well, I grew up in Naas. I'm also I do some farming as well. I'm a part-time farmer.
I couldn't believe this. I wanted everyone to hear this. Like, I have heard him. Like, I've seen him perform. I've seen his videos. I never would have said this guy was a sheep farmer ever. Not in a million years.
We did a concert version of Carmen once, and I was in John Wilson, who. He's a famous conductor. He's based in London. You'd see him on BBC Four. He often has his own orchestra.
Yes.
But he was going to need a taxi the day of the after party, and I had to go home, and because we were lambing at the time, and so like within an hour, I literally came backstage, threw my tails into the bag, went home, got into my sheep care, and was in the shed like lambing EO, and he texted me, and I just sent him a picture. He was like, "That's the man." They were at the bar, like just having the art. He was like, "Where are you?"
Champagne,
talking high opera and stuff, and I was at home in my sheep gear. So that's kind of my life. So definitely, life is all about balance, isn't it? Really. So that's definitely my balance and my.
Because like I was saying to Patrick earlier on, I said, with COVID and like it really affected singers and stuff like that. And I said, I bet you were practicing out in your gorgeous few acres of land singing to the sheep. Like the sheep got your best performance.
Probably,
I would say all
my best or my worst. I mean, it depends. The poor dog is probably,
The dog is
I think he's just given up.
I'm sick of this geezer now.
He does. He looks at me funny sometimes when I go up in those notes. He's like, "Are you okay?" But
Well, that is good to know. Now we're going to talk about this next song that we're going to play, and this is performed by you. Yes,
this is me.
Yes, definitely. 100%. So let's talk about this.
This is Machusla. It's probably made famous by John McCormack, mostly, and Joseph Locke as well. Machusla is my pulse, but it's also kind of my darling in Irish. I first heard this in the Michael Collins film, the 1996 Michael Collins film. Frank Patterson sung it. They were at the
I remember that.
They were in the at the kind of ballroom. There was just before the truce was announced, and it's also like we were talking earlier about opera featuring in a lot of films, but it's in the $1 Million Baby.
Yes, it is.
Hilary Swank is the Clint Eastwood calls her Machusla, is embroidered on her boxing trunks, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So yeah, it's there. And then remember, she asked him what it means, and he said, "My darling." So this is Machusla.
Okay, thank you for that, and we will be back right after this. This is Patrick Hyland performing Machusla. Nace Radio Online.
Machusla, Machusla, your sweet voice is calling, calling me softly again and again. Machusla, Machusla, I hear its dear pleading, my blue-eyed Machusla, I hear it in vain. Machusla, Machusla, your white arms are reaching, I feel their enfolding, caressing me still. Fling them out from the darkness, my lost love, Machusla. Let them find me and bind me again if they will. Machusla, your red lips are saying that death is a dream and love is forever. Then awaken, Machusla, awake from your dreaming, my blue-eyed Machusla, awaken to stay.
You're listening to Nace Radio Online, and that was Machusla, performed by Patrick Hyland. And Patrick is still here in studio for our St. Patrick's Day special, and what a great day it is. Now, Patrick, you are interested in Irish history, so let's have a little chat about your interest, and then let's talk a little bit about Irish history.
Yeah, I always had probably along the same lines as the music, I always had a very keen interest in history growing up.
Yeah.
I remember when I was like 11, I saw a prospectus for college for my sister, and I was going through it, and I saw there's a degree for history and politics, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
And you were happy with that, yeah?
Happy with that, yeah.
because I'm thinking about all of us who are like, no, run from history and politics.
Yeah, no, when I saw it, I couldn't believe that they'd actually, that there was a course you could do both. So, yeah, so I did that in UCD. But it was always there. My family on my mother's side were always very, current affairs, history, politics. There was a recorder at home with The World at War, narrated by Laurence Olivier, that I probably watched about 50 times.
Yeah.
So that was, that was the famous 1960s documentary on the Second World War. And and Irish history in particular, I was always fascinated. I remember I was very young, and I heard in the car, we were going up to Switzer's to Brown Thomas to see Santa.
Oh, I remember.
There was a documentary on probably, and I remember, somebody said, "Oh, well, the Republic was declared in 1949," and I was only about 7 or 8, and I remember being fascinated because my dad was born in 1950, so I could collate. Well, that wasn't that long ago, and the question out of my mind was, why was it only? Because when you're a kid, you grow up with the Na Fianna stories and Tia McCool and all that. So I was like, and so you've kind of a sense of this long lineage, and then of course it opens up a whole chapter. But I've always been very interested.
So let's talk about Irish history. what stands out for you most? Like, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I suppose it is probably from the post-famine era to 1922 would probably be the most, the most, and obviously most formulative to us today and the country we live in.
Yeah.
So that whole post-famine era, the rise of Parnell.
Yes.
And who I think Parnell was really a huge figure in the formation of the state we live in today, and had a huge impact on parliamentary democracy around the world in the formation of a united party with, well, of course, united before the Parnell split, but I think Parnell really, before Parnell, of course, you have 1798, and we'll talk a little bit about that later with the song we're going to sing. Yeah. But Parnell really brings the parliamentary side and the military side together, which obviously is used very potently in the after the 1919 election with the Dáil and that there was a war of independence. So Parnell is a huge figure for me then, and then into the Home Rule movement, and then of course the big icon and hero of a lot of us is Michael Collins.
I was just going to say that I went down to his place that he used to live around Clonakilty, and it's just the energy. It just gave me goosebumps. I saw his bits and pieces, and it gave me goosebumps. Yeah,
it does. It still catches us all. And it's great. Young people they're like, oh, I love Michael Collins, and he's somebody. Do you know, Deborah? Like as a kid, you're like, oh, Michael Collins is great. He's somebody who, as I've gotten older, I actually have more and more respect for, and he's younger than he died when he was younger. He was younger than me when he died. So
Isn't
it's
that
a bit
crazy.
I know, it's mad. It's a bit like I don't know if you know the story of Caesar when he's at Alexander the Great's statue, and he weeps and thinks of all that Alexander the Great had done. And it's kind of, I'm a bit like, God, look at all that he'd achieved. And there's so many different facets to Collins. It's his intellect. It's his bravery. And it's his love of Ireland. I was looking at old pate footage of him talking to local farmers, and the women are in the old, the Aran Island shawls, and he's laughing and he's joking, like he's a real jovial kind of character, and people loved him. And I think that's
a very handsome man. He was a bit of eye candy for the ladies as well.
Yeah, he had all the gifts, didn't he?
He had it going.
He ticked all the boxes, but and a huge, like, just his pragmatism. And when you read some of his papers and letters, you've a real sense of the man. And
his letters are amazing.
They are, aren't they? And he was tough, but he was pragmatic. Yeah, and he represents a lot of dynamism in Ireland, of his Minister of Finance, running the intelligence operation in the IRA, head of the Provisional Government, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Before he's 31, it's extraordinary.
He was still very young.
Yeah, he's so young, and I suppose that's the tragedy of it, and he'll forever remain young. But he would have been a huge
influence on everybody.
Huge influence on all of us.
Patrick, we're not getting into politics now, but when you see all our great men and we look at them now, they're very weak compared to what we used to have, and it's very, very sad.
Yeah, I think
it's a bit sad. These were men, and they really fought for their country. Now, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think, Deborah, to be fair, I think people are called at different times of history. Some of the Home Rule leaders weren't very inspirational of their time as parliamentary. So Parnell came along, he was a huge kind of, this big kind of movie star figure, and he was eloquent and everything like that. And a lot of these people come of the time, Collins was very young. A lot of the revolutionaries were very young and very but they ended up being very conservative, as we know. So it depends in times of war and things. A lot of great people stepped forward who would have otherwise been, going along other lines. Like Collins was working in the post office in London before when he joined the Gaelic League, so he might have ended up being a clerk. He could have. Sean Lamass's father was a draper, making suits. So he could have went down. So times of war call, which is can be great. Extraordinary people, and we were very lucky in the people we call. But I have great admiration for anyone who goes into public service, and I think it's hard going, and it's
So who was after Collins then? Who do we have after him? See, I told you I'm not good at history.
Well, I mean, Cosgrave deserves a lot of credit,
yes.
and of course De Valera, and how we gained more and more independence after the treaty, and so there's a long lineage of.
What was your feelings on Mr. Charles Haughey?
Oh God, are we going down that?
No, I just, because in a way I felt, because I watched that, it wasn't a movie, it was a 3-part, and I thought, wow, like he did literally come from nothing, and his mother pushed and pushed and pushed, and he did become something, like he did, and he did try to do his best. Now forget about all the dodgy stuff. Look, they're all doing it now, but
I don't think anyone can question Haughey's ability. And if you look at,
intelligent, wasn't he?
Yeah, and if you look at his legislative legacy, the Succession Act, the healthcare reforms he brought in, with injustice, and as Taoiseach, people would credit him with the IFSC and that kind of thing. But obviously, there was other issues there as well. But and he's of the the first generation of the children of the revolution. So
absolutely,
they were an important. An important generation, and the first kind of those that been educated and I think he went through scholarships as well, didn't he? Through
he did,
So and it was in UCD. But like we have to look at, there's a lot of factors that make our economic success, but I don't think we can necessarily overrule his achievements, even though there was obviously a lot of flaws and those around him, and Alan Dukes needs credit as well for not when Haughey's budgets were going through as well. So look, there's a lot of people that make a dinner, and there's a lot of people that have made the prosperity.
But I still feel the older guys back in like the days really done it for Ireland, and they kept us going, and we are where we are today because of these great men.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
We really are.
And I think
fought for our country. Like
I think the impact of the famine is a huge thing for us. I think it left, and I think it still does. I think it left a long legacy, and I think it left there's a lot of, we've 1798, we've O'Connell, we've Parnell, we've then the first Home Rule Bill, 1914, we've 1916, 1922, but all of them lead to different, to the next thing, and it's up to us in our generation to look to the future, to our next thing within Europe and everything that's going on at the moment, and where our place is within Europe, and so it's. I think the founding fathers would be especially the parliamentary home rule people would be astonished at the achievements of the Republic of Ireland. Yeah.
Irish history. Now you see. Yeah. I'm not really into history, but I really enjoyed that. That was so nice, It kind of, especially on a St. Patrick's Day, it kind of gets you, it gives you this adrenaline of being proud to be Irish and about our history and that, doesn't it? It really, really does. Now, let's talk about your next song that we're going to play. She is Far From the Land. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, this is probably one, if not my favourite Irish song. This is Amour's Melody. It's based around the story of Sarah Curran. Sarah Curran and Robert Emmet were a romantic couple. They were together. And Sarah's father, John Curran, was a very well-known barrister. He was a Whig MP. He supported the United Irishmen. He supported Catholic emancipation. He had defended Wolfe Tone and Napper Tandy and them. But when Sarah began going out in our term with Robert Emmet, he wasn't happy at all.
Really?
Yeah, no. Robert Emmet was he thought Robert Emmet was a known duelist. He didn't think he was suitable for his daughter, which is a common thing.
I like this.
And when the rebellion broke out in 1803, Emmet's rebellion, one of his friends was killed in it, and so he completely turned against the United Irish cause. And after Emmet's execution, he disowned Sarah Curran.
Oh no.
Yeah, and she ended up marrying a captain in the British Army. She ended up in Sicily.
No way.
And she was a minstrel, like she was a singer, she was a harpist.
Yeah.
And she used those talents kind of to make her way. She had one son that died after a month, and she herself died of tuberculosis in 1808. Yeah, just 5 years after Emmett. And she asked to be buried with her sister in Newmarket, but her father refused, and she was buried in Rathfarnham. She was buried in Newmarket. She asked to be buried with her sister in Rathfarnham. Wow. But the story of the song is she's far from the land, so she's obviously out in Sicily, and where her young hero sleeps, and lovers around her are sighing. So she's performing in this song to them, but little do they know it's about him, and in her heart is grieving. And there's another Moors song called Oh Dare Not Breathe His Name.
No way.
Oh, breathe not his name. So it's kind of like it's too much, it's too much. And the final verse is, oh, make her a grave. It's just all too much, just make her a grave. That's, this is all too much,
Oh my
So it's
word.
And it's brilliantly written, because it starts with her kind of singing in her parlour, thinking of him, and then it moves to him. He had lived for his love, for his country he died, and nor long will his love stay behind him. So it's kind of Emmett talking to her from the grave, and then it's just because you're going between Ireland, Sicily, Ireland, Sarah, Emmett, and then at the end, both of them are together. So it's just very.
She died in the end, so spiritually they got together. So I wonder how her husband felt about that. Did he cop on that she was singing about another man?
Well, I think it's a bit like
I love
it's quite the story, isn't it? But it's a bit like there's an aria, not going back to the opera, but Vesta la Juba from Pagliacci, and he's putting on his clown outfit to go out and perform. But his heart is breaking. So maybe it's the performer. It's kind of you're looking at that she's putting on but inside there's a line in the song. Little do they think how the heart of the minstrel is breaking. So I think but it's beautifully written, and it's
like these old Irish songs are very much like Bollywood songs. So I love Bollywood music,
right, very good.
And they always put on a performance, and it's always a tragedy, and it's always a sadness about not being with the one you love, or maybe he died. And like Ireland and the Bollywood stuff, like the old Irish and the Bollywood, it's kind of linking in as almost. I love it. That is so sad.
Yeah, it is. Sorry,
I'm really upset now. I'm really upset.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's a lot of love in it as well.
Yeah,
and it's
love.
fresh, and it's young, and it's
that is so sad.
Yeah, sorry.
That really is. So we're going to play it now, and I'll probably cry during it, but we're going to play it. She is Far from the Land, and this is performed by my one and only Patrick Hyland. You're listening to Nace Radio Online.
She's far from the land where her young hero sleeps, and lovers around her are sighing, but coldly she turns from their gaze and weeps, for her heart in his grave is lying. She sings the wild songs of her dear native plains, every note which he loved awaking. A little they think who delight in her strains, how the heart of the minstrel is breaking. for his country he died. They were all that to life had entwined him. None soon shall the tears of his country be dried, nor long will his love stay behind him, nor long will his love stay behind him. Oh, make her a grave where the sunbeams rest, when they promise that glorious morrow, they'll shine o'er her sleep like a smile from the west, from her own loved island of sorrow.
You're listening to Nace Radio Online, and happy St. Patrick's Day. That was She Is Far From the Land, and that was performed by Patrick Hyland. And Patrick is still with us. And talking about a Patrick, we're going to talk about St. Patrick. So Patrick is actually chatting about Patrick.
Yeah, well, yeah, St. Patrick's Day. It's obviously a huge, iconic day around the world. And a happy St. Patrick's Day to all your listeners.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what an impact Patrick had. But actually, around where...
Yeah, you want to talk about something else.
Well, no, not something, but...
The same thing, yeah.
I think, like, within the Leinster area, and there was a Palladius who came in 431, and Patrick was kind of more northern, around Ulster area, but Palladius was probably somebody more of an impact. Okay. He left a lot of kind of close kind of monastic settlements in the Leinster area, obviously close to the Hill of Tara, which was obviously a huge settlement meeting, another meeting place of the kings, and our own meeting place of the kings, Nosnaree. So there was a monastic settlement kind of, post Palladius in Killashee, which I don't know if you're aware of. There's a tower in Killashee, in a very ancient graveyard. In Killashee, and
they call it the nuns' graveyard, but what was it before that?
Oh no, but there's another graveyard behind the nuns. There is. Yeah,
I never knew that.
Yeah, very old kind of. There's a very old church in there. I was in there a couple of years ago, and it's fascinating. Some of the Baron de Robex are buried in there, and
really,
yeah, it's quite a fascinating thing. But they so that kind of early Christian settlement was kind of. Palladius kind of was kind of the guy for our area, and even around the Nace area we've Tipper graveyard. There's a graveyard out in our at home as well, called Kelshaluchan, and then Hollywood and up to Glendalough, and there was a pilgrimage trail all the way from starting in Tipper. Tipper graveyard is I think there's an archbishop buried in Tipper graveyard.
I definitely think so. So Palladius, was he pagan?
No, he was Christian. He was sent by one of the Urbans.
We were pagans.
Sorry?
We were pagans, weren't we? We were Celts, pagans.
Well, we were. I mean, there's a whole argument about and theories about pre-Christian Ireland. There's some arguments that in some of the annals that the pre-Christian Ireland were actually waiting for a revelation. To come, like the Tuatha De Danann were, these fairy people that lived under the ground. Yeah. But Tuatha De Danann, when the early Christians came, were the children of God, and the early church changed that the translation of that, because it was kind of seen in some of the annals that hints that they were waiting for a revelation from outside of their lands. And some scholars now argue that that's why Christianity, because it did within 150, 200 years, Ireland is a Christian country. By the 7th century, Ireland is a well-established Christian country with monastic settlements and things like that. But it does explain, that it might explain how quickly Patrick was accepted and Palladius, and that these early settlers, but definitely within our area around Naas and that there's a lot of very early settlement. Yeah.
Okay, so like for anyone that's at a loose end over the long weekend, you know, because it is a long weekend, so we mention them again in Naas. What do we have to go look at?
Well,
you would just say, out near you.
Well, no, in Tipper, there's a great about Killishy, but they're quite overgrown. I don't know if I'd be saying hordes of people. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but I'd definitely be reading up on Killishy. There's a fascinating history there.
Do. And
there's actually the Kildare Historical Society wrote a paper on Killishy, which is fascinating, and it has all the list of, and you'll see a lot of old Naas names that we see today. On some of those inscriptions and things like that, but it's fascinating. And like I was doing a bit of research up on the graveyard near us, and there was like a whole in the annals there's a whole list of saints, and Patrick's actually not he's not a canonized saint by the Roman Church actually, but he's obviously our leading saint. But there's kind of arguments that was a new era of kind of making saints in the church. But there's a whole list of saints, people I'd never, Luchon and all these people who I'd never really heard of. But of course, we kind of had a kind of an independent church up until about the 623, I think is when Iona kind of introduced Irish clergy into England, and then we kind of moved more towards Rome. But before that, there's a lot of people call it the kind of the Celtic Christianity. So there's this period when Patrick comes to kind of around the middle of the 7th century, where Ireland is kind of independent is a strong word, but definitely a church that Rome needs to bring under its control.
So we were a bit feisty.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, like some people say this Celtic Christianity church wasn't there, but like that, and that I don't think it didn't. We were kind of in these times of it opposed. I don't think it opposed Rome. I think it just ran linear to the Roman Church. But when when Rome became aware that they needed to to rein it in, but like there's the Celtic Christianity church would have been seen as more kind of more spiritual, friendlier to women, kind of more connected with nature, and more comfortable with dealing with Celtic polytheism. So more comfortable dealing with. The way we're told, Bridget's well, that was a pagan well before, and we just changed it to Bridget. So, in a way, the Irish Church kind of evolves in a different way. And, of course, after the fall, we sent so many missionaries out to different parts of Europe and that. So,
basically, they were, because we're such a small little country, then they went, oh, look, we forgot about this. Oh, look, they're doing this. They're worshipping, the elements. Oh, there's a bit of witchery going on now in this country.
Well, I don't know.
We need to calm it down a bit now. Get over there, you guys.
I definitely think that
they'll be dancing around fires and stuff like that before we know.
I definitely think the church was interested in making a uniform anyway.
Absolutely.
Which we know.
Yeah.
It's fascinating though that that it kind of organically, because we're a long way from Rome in those, we're a long way from the Holy Land.
Very long way, yeah.
So it's, in those times, and we weren't conquered by Rome, so we did kind of have an independent thing. And Ireland by the 7th, 8th century was a hybrid of learning and education and recording literary works. So we're a huge player in that regard. In the early Christian European church. But within our own church, definitely it was seen that we needed to.
But St. Patrick then came over and... I
don't know if he liked it. Well, he writes in his confession. He writes in his confession. He was born in Wales, and he and then he's enslaved, and then he comes back. He has, of course, the dream and that, and he comes back, and he's told to bring Christianity to Ireland. But I there is evidence that there was other. There was other people who came before, and definitely Palladius was, it's recorded.
Was the main guy.
Well, he came. He was definitely sent by the papal authorities and that to Christianize, or to at least support the Christians who were already here, perhaps before. But it's a fascinating.
And
area.
We've never had snakes ever again in Ireland.
Well, did we ever have snakes? I don't know. Did we?
I think the snakes was our ways. probably our
The old
earthly
pagan
ways,
ways,
the
yeah,
old
yeah.
pagan ways. They got now there is a few snakes still out there, though, isn't there, in human form? But we won't talk about them. Now we want to talk about Danny Boy.
Danny Boy.
Oh, I want to know the story and the history behind this. This is great.
Well, I always
Please don't
everyone has a it's so many. When people ask me to sing it, it's my mum's favourite song, my dad's favourite song, and my granddad's. For me, it was my granny's favourite. Well, it was a song that we sung a lot, and I think it was the first thing I ever played on the keyboard in C major, which I definitely cannot sing it in.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, it was just on my little keyboard. But Danny Boy. It's written by an Englishman, Frederick Weatherly. So he wrote down the words, and then his sister-in-law sent him the Londonderry air, which is an old Irish air, and he changed the original song of Danny Boy to match that air.
Oh,
and
right.
So and then there was Eliza Griffin. She put it on one of her tracks, one of her recordings in 1915, and it becomes a huge hit.
Wow.
Across definitely the Irish world, as a lot of these songs are. I mean, this is 1915. This is the era of records being made, new records. So people, but it's a great song, isn't it? Like it's it's a bit like She's Far From the Land. There's a lot of ebb and flow that, like, he's going away, and then of course we've the similar theme of the two of them kind of being together in the end, even though
you're going to make me cry again now.
Oh no,
These
sorry.
are very sad.
It's going to be happy, but it's a great song. It has everything in it, and people
It does, and
people
it's
love it.
known everywhere.
Like
it's in movies.
Yeah.
It's in, like, Your Man Sings Danny Boy. I can't remember that a movie, Goldie Hawn and that other guy's in it, about they pretend they're married and his dad comes and he sings Danny Boy, and it's in everything.
Yeah, it's in
like, I reckon every bar in the US now today is going to be singing it.
Somebody will be singing it somewhere.
Somebody's going to be singing it, and everybody's going to be joining in.
Yeah, it's a real iconic. It's a great song. It really is.
Yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful song. So, we are going to play this, but before we go, what's in the pipeline for you?
I have a role, Rodolphe, in Guillaume Tell Rossini with Irish National Opera.
That sounds amazing.
So I've that coming up, and I have some concerts and stuff in the bag. And
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Are you glad to be back?
I am. Yeah, I didn't realise how much I missed it till I actually got back on stage. Really, and I was like, oh, this is what it was.
It used to feel like, yeah.
Yeah, and it just felt like, it's weird, because had you asked me when I was, 18, would this be what I'd be doing? I would have been like, I wouldn't have thought I would be doing it. But it's amazing how natural it is, how it's become such a part of you. Yeah,
it's just you now. Yeah,
yeah, and look, sometimes I think it. Sometimes COVID can be like, you had a lot of time to think, and
a
you've a lot of time to
or a curse.
Yeah. And look, it was very hard on everyone. Mm-hmm. And we all deserve a huge round of applause for all of us getting hard through it. It was a tough time, but look, we're in spring. It's Patrick's Day, and that's kind of the warm weather's coming and all that.
And you're happy out. But did you ever, like, this is personal, like, did you ever wake up some morning and go, I don't want to do this anymore?
Like during COVID or in general?
Just in general, because to me, I've heard your voice, and people have already heard you, and they're listening now, and we would say you have a gift.
Yeah, I definitely,
very, very good gift.
I definitely appreciate the gift that I have. There's no doubt about it. And, the work that's gone into, I think they say you need to do 1,000 hours. I've definitely done 1,000 hours at this stage.
Absolutely.
Of anything that you do. It is a gift, and I'm very lucky, and I love singing, and I'm not just a singer. I love hearing singers. Like, I love music.
Yeah.
And music is definitely something that I could never live without.
Yeah. But did you ever say I just don't want to do this anymore?
No, I don't think I've ever.
Well, that's good.
I've never said I'm not going to sing anymore. No.
Well, that's brilliant.
I've never. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I've never done that. Yeah. Maybe changed a few things around it, but definitely not. not never going to sing. Even if I was going to sing on my own, I'd still be happy. So if I was singing to myself, I'd be happy. I love music.
That's
and
brilliant.
I really do.
Never give it up.
Great.
Another question. He's going to kill
coming
me
in fast.
because like these are random. He doesn't know what I'm going to come out with. They say a lot of performers and like singers can be a bit diva-ish, and you can be a bit drama queens. Are you like that? Are you like that?
What a leading question.
You're not one of these people that like say, take out the yellow M&Ms now before I perform, and I need this. Like, are you quite?
I don't.
Is it hard to say there's you and there's another girl and there's another guy? Can it be hard, getting that bond, or do you have to bond well before you perform?
Like on the diva thing, I think that day is gone. With most, I don't think anyone would tolerate that kind of behaviour anymore. And I don't know who I'd be a diva to. So maybe the dog at home, just look at me. M&M, he probably eat all the M&Ms.
I love it.
But I think that kind of. But I do like. I will go into quiet time before performance. That's that's not being a diva. That's just something you have to do. You have to focus on what you're doing. And like there's obviously things I can't do before I'm performing. Go out or
you can't go on the lash now.
Definitely not before I perform. Maybe after, but but there's a lot of things, and I think sometimes people are like, a lot of the time before I perform, I would have to kind of just be mindful of what I'm doing and resting and things like that. Yeah. But and as regard to gelling with other colleagues, I mean, it's very important that you do get on, because you're singing a lot of stuff. It's very emotive stuff. You're singing, you're really wearing your heart in your sleeve, and that connection has to be genuine. It has to be real, because people have to know. When it's genuine, when you see it, and that's really important. Authenticity is very important. So, and this is the amazing thing with the singing is you often have contracts where you're so close to people, and then you're kind of, the contract's over, and you keep in contact on Facebook, they could be abroad and stuff like that. And and it's amazing. I see like friends of mine who are in Ukraine at the moment, and they're, I see them posting, and, my heart goes out to everything that's happening.
We have to mention that as well. I was only messing about the diva thing because I wanted to see his face when I said I have something else to ask, because his eyes just opened and went, please, nothing too personal. I was messing. Yeah. Like, it is St. Patrick's Day, and while all of us are celebrating and we're having the crack and that, we don't have planes and bombs going over, so like we have to think about them today as well, and hopefully we can take a good few over as well. And like Irish people, that's the amazing thing. Give them the Irish, and
it does make us, like on this Patrick's Day, we're talking about Irish history and things, and about previous, people who've been, like, at times like this, we do really. I know I can only speak for myself. I really am so proud that we live in this country.
Me too.
And when you see
100%.
the amazing thing Irish people are doing and really putting themselves out there, I think it does make you. That's what makes us proud to be Irish. Like, we can put all the other stuff, but when things like this happen, we really are. People are. They're amazing.
I have to say that because I run the Nacetown page as well, and if anybody is in a crisis and somebody sends in a message, now it's always like anonymous, like, and you see the amount of comments, like just for random things, or maybe somebody's probably lost their cat, and everybody shares. So I have to say about being Irish, we all stick together, and they're brilliant on like the Nacetown page. They really are. They all club together, and a lot of people are after doing a lot for Ukraine as well. So I think that's what I love about being Irish. In a crisis, the minute of crisis, everybody just pulls up their sleeves, gets on with it, and really helps. And
100%.
I love being Irish.
And it's the empathy, we've such empathy. We see ourselves in those situations, and people just genuinely want to help. And it's great.
I hope that never goes away.
No,
I hope it never fades away. I hope it always stays like that. I really do. But I think we're all touched by our grannies, our great grannies, our granddads. So I think that even when like our generation have the kids, we'll still have that in them, and hope they'll have that in like theirs as well.
Yeah, we know what it's like on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Patrick Hyland. I actually thought that was his stage name, and he's like Deborah J. That's actually my real name. What a cool name, isn't it? Tell everybody a little about where it came from. It comes from where?
Well, my father's from just outside of Thai.
Yeah.
On the Thai-Laois border. So
The Laois border,
yeah. It's a Laois name. Because of Fuelon, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Fuelon. I was like, that is an amazing name. Because I was like, I love your stage name. And he's like, what? That's not a stage name. That's my real name.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful name. Patrick Hyland, thank you so much for taking time to come into studio and to do our St. Patrick's Day special. And we're going to leave you with Danny Boy, performed by Patrick. Where can people go to see you? Like, as in your webpage and all that kind of stuff?
I have my website, and I'm on the old Instagram.
He's on Instagram,
Facebook, Twitter,
Facebook, as they say. You're on Insta, and you have a website as well.
I have a website as well.
Yeah, well,
Patrick Hyland Tenor.
Yeah, I can put that up for you as well. So thank you so much, and we're going to leave you with Danny Boy, performed by Patrick Hyland. You're listening to Nace Radio Online.
Are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But when you come and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me, and I shall hear those soft you tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be, for you will amend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me.
Samuel. Malanavin Allen, Mavochalin Biog. Samuel and Sa im Vachtunagum. Samuel Faig, Brahev, Canner Kielver. Hashta Sheo Vadagain, Detal Sheo Realtin Spliodrach. I downta Eli agus na nanga. Vroig Samuel Biogarig. Hasha Dahad La is Dahadaihe Savasa. Gan Bia gan Ishke. An Ganavi Shir Heide in a hula Galharacha. A Harshe Leshe, Yenshe an Vert, Seliach Dumse, Balker Biog Bra Sasta, then a hula Galharacha, agus a Schmigin even. Magratu Samuel, is lumta sanne, agus galam daite os cor Eli is na nangel, godorhad arna trino de rit.
More music, more fun. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
This is Nace Radio Online. Happy St. Patrick's Day from all of us on Nace Radio Online. Wishing you a pot of gold and all the joy your heart can hold.